we'd like to share some thoughts with you. I'm George Wilson from Original Software. I'm here with my colleague Tim Bauer, both based in the UK. And in a moment we'll press on with the webinar. A couple of little bits of information that might help you. Sort of panel delivered by GoToWebinar on the right-hand side of your screen. You can undock that and move it around with the two little sort of arrow shapes at the top. There's also an orange arrow on a little tab on the left, and if you press that one, it kind of minimizes the panel so it's present in the way of what you want to look at. If you'd like to ask us some questions, what you need to do is to type those into the questions form at the bottom. We will answer those at the end, so perhaps not as we go, but type them as we go, and we'll answer them at the end. During the process, we will be going through 3 very short polls to get some information from you. And just for your information, you will be on mute, so you can't talk to us or talk to each other, hence why we'll use for organising that. Okay. So I shall hand over directly to Tim, who will start with what we're going to do.
Excellent. Thank you very much, George. So let's make a start, and let's talk about the challenge. So you've got SAP R3, or certainly assume you do, and you're wanting to modernize, or perhaps you're concerned about support and innovation for R3 with the advent of SAP S/4HANA. So you've got some options, really. Obviously, you can stay with an SAP support, and undoubtedly SAP will be supporting R3 for a while to come. There are probably options to move to using a third party to support that if you're concerned with what SAP are going to be putting into the product. And then obviously you do have that option to consider another application such as Oracle, or a cloud application, maybe a mixture of all of those. But probably the simplest and easiest option is to consider migrating to SAP S/4HANA. So before we really get started, I just wanted to have a quick poll. What is your current situation? So if I could ask you to select one of those options, and then once that's done, we'll review the results. So just give everybody a moment or two to select the option.
Okay, I've just closed that poll and share the results with you. So broadly, 50% of you are planning to migrate to SAP S/4HANA, or actually in the process of doing it. So everybody's going down that track, which is hardly surprising. Okay, hide that now, and we'll go back to Tim.
Thanks, George. So obviously, this is going to be a very significant change. So from a technical aspect, involve new hardware. It's also going to involve a new database and potentially some new software. And operationally, you're going to end up eventually with new functionality, new user interfaces, new operational procedures. So really what we're looking at is a long period of continuous change. So what doing this? Well, Hasso Plattner, the chairman of SAP himself, said if this doesn't work, we're dead in the water. And obviously he was referring to SAP as an organization, as they're putting so much effort and banking on HANA and SAP S/4HANA being the platform of the future. But I guess you could really apply the same thing to your own business. If it doesn't work, that's not a good place to be. So what is the happen? Well, nothing works. Highly unlikely. At best, well, at best, it is going to be a significant disruption to the business, but it will deliver success for your business, and it is a secured future, so it's obviously the right thing to be doing. But really the important thing with this is to look at how we can minimize the risk in getting there. So to success, planning, management, validation of the new platform, being able to repeat this, and we'll talk a little bit more about repetition of the projects, and looking at automation and how we can automate some of the process, and obviously educating your organization that work within it and work with the system. So really the migration is a series of upgrade projects. First one obviously to move across onto the HANA database platform. Then once you've done that, migrating from the traditional SAP modules to the new simple modules such as Simple Finance. But the real danger is that as you do this, each migration ends up, or each phase of this project, if you like, ends up being a project than the one before. So why is that? I think for each new module that you implement, you almost all of the rest of the system is impacted in some way, and therefore is going to require testing and validation. And if you don't have a repeatable, measurable process in place, there's a danger that each of those migrations is like starting from scratch. So what about that? Well, firstly, the first thing to consider is an integrated planning, management, and communication platform. You need to be able to document your plan and to manage the plan. Importantly, communicate that plan to all stakeholders, document the execution of the plan, and gather the metrics which are going to help you revise the plan for future use, because as we've seen, it's going to be an iterative process, and we need to get better with each phase. And also, as you go through each of those phases, you'll be gathering assets, capturing knowledge, and we want to be able to reuse that, those assets and that knowledge in future phases. So this is going to help to ensure that the effort doesn't explode for each new phase of the project. And it's also going to help to do things like provide proof of the process, proof of the execution, management, and importantly, things like compliance and audit. But what can we do to get quicker? And this is where automation comes in to play. And I'm not just talking about automated testing. All I'm talking about is automation of a number of things. Automating the gathering of metrics and automating reporting is going to provide you savings from a management perspective. Automating the proof of testing, particularly for UAT, capturing what people are doing and documenting that provides good savings. And then obviously automation of test execution is an area where you can make huge savings in the effort. Now, these three things together not only allow you to deliver faster, but as you graphic, to increase the rate at which you deliver, the more migrations you have. And if you like, it's the law of increasing returns rather than diminishing returns. So what can we do? So from a best practices standpoint, before you do anything, I think you need to understand what you have now. You need to be able to document your processes and to build a library of those processes, if you like. And a bit later on, we'll show how to document those processes and how that documentation becomes a valuable set of assets to the business. Next comes the technical migration. And we have a number of partners who help provide guidance and tooling to smooth that process. The Proceed Group's right sizing for HANA helps you to optimize and minimize the size of the data. We know that HANA appliances are not cheap, so getting the right size database is obviously going to save you money when you're acquiring your new appliance. Once we perform the technical migration, we're going to want to validate the new architecture. So you have now the as-is, so you know the date. It's your blueprint, if you like. And then obviously the process of executing those tests, documenting the outcome, reporting of issues, etc. And there are obviously lots of opportunities here for automation to help with the validation. And even if you are manually validating the new, automatic documentation of that effort is going to provide complete and concise issue reporting. And as with documenting the as-is, this is not wasted effort. Documentation is a useful, reusable asset, and it's going to feed back into that process library. And of course, proper planning and management is key. You need to know what you need to do, who needs to do it, when it needs to be done. Track the progress, and obviously your plan is going to change as you progress through the project, so you need it to be flexible to allow you to those changes. And obviously reporting and compliance is important. So you need to use an application that's going to help you plan, manage the process, capture those metrics. And finally, at the end of each of those phases, review what you've just done. And if you've used correct applications to support you, you're going to have all of the information and metrics that you need to perform that review and to review the process used, make changes, next phase more efficient and more effective. So just some examples of how you might go about doing that. So here, similar to a whiteboard, the ability to drag and drop tasks around, assign them to people, take a look at what it might look like. Manage those people in different roles, able to different amounts of time to the project. Then people take holidays, sickness, etc. So being able to view that and react to that is very important to keeping your project on track. Being able to, at a glance, provide metrics and reporting for management purposes and compliance and audit. So being able to see everything in one place is a feature. And then work management itself, for the individuals providing the work, they need to know what to do, when to do it, what the status is. And I think there's nothing better than pretty pictures to help motivate people when they can see how much they've achieved. It kind of spurs them on to achieve more. And then probably most importantly, proof of testing. So you've seen some examples of infrastructure that's almost a requisite in order to be efficient in the activities of delivering the project and the phases of the project. And that includes all phases, the capturing the as-is, the migration, and then in the validation. So in a moment, let's talk about how we go about executing the plan, starting with documenting the as-is. But before we do that, another quick poll, if you would be so kind.
So the first of these activities that we discussed is going to be documenting what you do now, your as-is, your blueprint going forwards. Perhaps you could just indicate how you feel you've ticked that box. Do you have good documentation now? Is it an area that needs work? So choose some of that. Just wait for the last couple of people to vote. Okay, we'll close that there and share the answers. So no one's admitting to poorly. Some documentation, customized situations documented. So clearly it's one of those areas where you may need to pay more attention to that to have a good baseline for going forwards to a new process, a new platform. So let's talk about how you get there.
Thanks, George. View business process capture, easy for me to say. And what we're looking at here is a user using a feature of the application and documenting that process. And this is a great way of kind of capturing and encapsulating the knowledge that those individuals have. You know, they're probably people from, might be business analysts, but being able to what they do when they use the application is great. And also providing features to enable them to share the knowledge that they have. So being able to highlight key areas or key bits of data, if you like, in the application and adding some notes and commentary there, doing that multiple times on multiple. And this is really the ability to take your key business users, the subject matter experts, and to formalize and store really at the moment what is stored in their head.
And the great thing about this is you can disseminate and delegate this activity to the people who really know. So you're not reliant on a single thread. It's very simple for business people to be able to use this technology and go right ahead and document what they do now.
Having captured that, let's talk a little bit about the documentation. So we are looking at some examples of what comes out of capturing that information. And here we see screenshots and details of what the user did and the comments they provide, but other information that's going to be captured and used later on. I think the amount of time it took to test, what the performance a particular part of the application looked like, and those are all great things because we're going to want to look at those and validate those later on. So while on the subject of training materials, here we have an example of a process that's been captured in the new SAP Fiori interface. And I always think way of understanding how something works is to watch it. So rather than look at a description in a document, being able to watch that through. So the example here is showing animation, and really it's just a little video-like thing based on that capture. And here actually we're just showing how you might go about approving and rejecting sales orders in Fiori. And obviously it can be saved off and shared around. So this is something that's going to add to that repository of how to use the application.
And if you think about it, when you're testing something is probably the first time you really understand how it works, and you work hard to set that up correctly. But actually, to make it successful, part of the challenge is ensuring that people know how to do that. And in the real world, if you don't know how to do something for a video, well, you can build your own library of videos of how to do this, how to do that.
Yeah, and although we're talking a little bit really about documenting the as-is at the moment, obviously you can do this with the new as well. So it's a great way of building training materials and helping to introduce the business to the new features in the application. So another quick poll for you.
So just to get in, what's the scope of business user engagement in processes? Is it a handful of people? Is it spread quite widely across the organization? If you could give us your best guess, it doesn't need to be that accurate, it's just to understand roughly the scale of people you tend to involve from the business. Any more votes, please? We'll do the Eurovision thing. Luxembourg, can we have your votes, please? Okay, well, I'll close that one and share it. And 100% of people have voted, and actually not everyone voted, to be fair, so that's kind of less than 10 people. So relatively small situation, not spread too widely. Okay, Tim.
So what we're going to do now is take a little look at testing and validation. And obviously this is an area where there is opportunity for massive savings, particularly as we go through each of those iterations that we talked about and having to revalidate parts of the application. Now, once you've done it once manually, it will be great to be able to automate that. And the automation here has actually been derived from original business process captures. The solution you're looking at here is a code-free solution. There is no programming language associated with the automation, so it's great for business analysts, people with knowledge of the application and knowledge of how to test. You don't need developer skills. And there are lots of technologies in play here that make it easy. Things like BusySense that understands the application, so you don't need to concern yourself with having to wait or dealing with varying performance of the application. And obviously, as you can see now, over multiple interfaces, and it's not just limited to SAP, something that can be used over all of those other applications that you're going to have, so enabling you to create true end-to-end automated regressions and validations. So as the automation in a moment, it's going to present us with a set of results. And the great thing I feel with this is that the results, as you'll see in a moment, are presented in exactly the same way as the validations when we were capturing the as-is or manually validating the new. So very consistent and gives you consistency in reporting of issues and all things. And now that you have automation, you don't need to test these areas manually again. And in fact, you can increase the scale of the testing simply by adding more scenarios. And I don't know if you noticed, but that automation was running multiple transactions over the same functions just simply by giving it a set of data to use. And you can also increase the velocity of your testing by adding more automation. So with each phase migration, you can add more previous phase, so getting quicker, and that's where we make those savings and being able to increase the speed at which you deliver each of those phases. Okay, so let's talk about the whole project savings, and the little graphic on the right there indicates all of the phases that are going to be involved in each one of those projects, and is obvious there, or the business validation phase is by far the largest, and our customers tell us that's probably about 60% of the total project effort. So using correct tools, solutions, applications, there is a massive opportunity for time and cost savings. And also, that is going to help us eliminate risk. So our upgraded applications are going to continue to meet our business requirements, be able to better meet our business project deadlines, and lift things like moratoriums on business enhancements. Obviously, while you're going through these projects, we're going to be saying to the business, sorry, we can't do that. We're actually just migrating across. So being able to do it quicker means that the business to be able to get those changes, enhancements, new features to progress their business. And then obviously reducing cost. And again, our customers are reporting back to us that they're saving well in excess of 30% of their project costs. So where do all these savings come from? Well, they really come from all stages of the process, but as we've said, the largest saving opportunity is in the validation. And that comes from having that knowledge base of capture processes that are reusable, having an effective management and collaboration platform, being able to document our executions, whether those are manual or automated, and having that consistent issue capture so that when you report back to whoever it is, it might be your IT folks, more likely back to SAP, so in a consistent and complete manner. Excellent. George.
Okay, so so far what we've shown you, just drawing towards the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, please type those in the question box now. I've got one or two there, but if there's time for some more. Talked about our methodology, which we have kind of developed in conjunction with our friend group who have great expertise in SAP and HANA. And as far as the validation is concerned, it's about treating that as a single project with the objective of a successful implementation and deployment. And that means, as Tim said, understanding where we are now so that we can document that and use that as a blueprint for the new system. Then validating that we're getting what we want and the system works, obviously deploying automation to minimize the repetitive work that we would have to maximize productivity. At the same time, it's an opportunity to capture training and process documentation to feed out to the users. And then we're going to be in a position where we're going to have to repeat that because it's probably not going to go through in one pass. And downstream, there are going to be upgrades and patches and new modules and things that we deploy as we go through the different phases of adopting HANA. So hopefully we've presented a methodology that kind of support that process. In fact, what we've done is we've put that in what we call which is a kind of rather long tool PDF, which we'd be delighted to send you a copy of if you'd like one. Just email us at solutions@origsoft.com and we'll send one over to you. So, time for questions. Tim, I've got one question that's come in, which is, can we link tests across multiple platforms like Salesforce, IBM mainframe, as well as SAP/HANA?
Yeah, absolutely. What we showed you across all of those platforms works in the same way. So I guess you could call it technology agnostic, if that's a reasonable way to describe it. And that's important because you are going to want to include those other applications and systems in the testing because of this is backwards and forwards.
Okay. Another question that has come in is, are there any special considerations for testing the HANA user interface, Fury?
Oh, Fury. No, it's a technology that's supported by our solutions. As with anything else, that fits in very nicely with what we do.
Okay, and I think we've got time just for a quick last one. What programming skills do people need to learn to use?
None at all, really. As I said earlier, the automation itself is non-programmatic, code-free, however you want to describe it. I think probably the skill that is required most is knowing the applications, know how they're used, and know what needs to be tested and how it needs to be tested.
Okay. So we're just coming as we hoped to be. We have recorded this webinar and we will be putting that up on our website. There are, in fact, a bunch of other videos, relatively short ones, that take you into individual features of the solution in different ways in different areas. So please feel free to go and have a look at those. Thank you very much for listening and for your participation, and we look forward to catching up with you sometime in the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tim.